Israel has just issued a warning that could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East. It's a statement charged with tension with consequences that extend far beyond the immediate region. They say, if Hezbollah intervenes in any conflict between the United States and Iran, Israel will not hesitate to strike. Let that sink in for a moment. Israel is not merely issuing a diplomatic caution or engaging in rhetoric designed to intimidate. This is an open threat, a declaration that our action, however small, could provoke a military response of unprecedented scale. Make no mistake, this is not diplomacy. This is a threat of war, and it could escalate far beyond what anyone is currently imagining. For decades, Israel and Hezbollah have circled each other like predators in the night. Each has probed the other's defenses, tested the limits, and occasionally clashed in violent confrontations. But the context has shifted dramatically. This isn't a simple territorial dispute between two neighbors. This is about the stability of an entire region, a delicate web of alliances and rivalries that could unravel with the strike of a single missile. The question is not hypothetical. It is urgent. How close are we to a major conflict in Lebanon, and could that conflict ignite a chain reaction across the Middle East and beyond? Consider the backdrop. Lebanon is a nation still healing from years of civil war and foreign occupation. Hezbollah has entrenched itself not only as a political entity, but as a formidable military force within Lebanese borders. Iran's influence has grown steadily in the region, from Syria to Yemen, from Lebanon to Iraq, reinforcing the notion that any confrontation will not be contained to local geography. Meanwhile, Israel, one of the most technologically advanced militaries in the world, is sending a crystal clear message. We are prepared and we will act decisively. There is no room for ambiguity here. This is a warning to multiple actors, Hezbollah, Tehran, and even indirectly to Washington, that any miscalculation could have devastating consequences. And the clock is ticking. Israel's government has not been subtle. Officials have made their intentions clear. If Hezbollah fires a single rocket, or if it materially supports Iranian military ambitions, Israel will respond with overwhelming force. This is not a scenario in which diplomacy, negotiations, or sanctions are on the table. This is a promise, a guarantee that military retaliation will occur. The gravity of such a statement cannot be overstated. It signals to Hezbollah and Iran that Israel is watching, measuring, and ready to act. The rhetoric is precise, intentional, and calibrated for maximum impact. Military experts point out that Israel possesses some of the most advanced missile defense systems in the world, sophisticated intelligence networks, and highly trained rapid response forces. These advantages give Israel a strategic edge that could enable it to target Hezbollah with precision while attempting to minimize collateral damage. But there's a complicating factor. Hezbollah is not the militia it once was. Over the past decade, it has transformed into a well-armed, strategically savvy, and deeply entrenched entity in southern Lebanon. Its arsenal is extensive, including long-range missiles capable of reaching deep into Israeli territory, and it has fortified its positions among civilian populations, making any military response exceedingly complex. This warning is also political. It communicates multiple messages simultaneously. To Tehran, it is a statement of deterrence. Israel will not allow Iran to manipulate Lebanese territory for its own strategic purposes. To Washington, it is both reassurance and caution. Israel is taking responsibility for its own security, but it also signals the potential for U.S. involvement should the situation escalate. And to Hezbollah, it is a stark choice: engage in aggression and face the full might of Israel's military, or refrain and avoid catastrophe. The clarity of this message is historically unprecedented. Experts describe it as a line in the sand, one drawn unmistakably for all to see. Optional commentary. Analysts emphasize that while Israel's capabilities are formidable, the risks of miscalculation are high. Hezbollah's military evolution means that any response will likely provoke significant retaliation. The organization has decades of combat experience, intimate knowledge of Israel's defensive strategies, and deep roots within the Lebanese population. This creates a dilemma. Israel can strike decisively, but the aftermath could produce a humanitarian crisis of immense proportions. Every decision is fraught with risk, and the margin for error is almost non-existent. The question facing the Israeli government is profound: how to maintain security without triggering the very escalation they hope to prevent. While military strategy and geopolitical maneuvering dominate headlines, we cannot overlook the human element. Lebanon is already a country on the brink, struggling with economic collapse, political paralysis, and widespread poverty. Its infrastructure is fragile, its public services underfunded, and its population exhausted by decades of conflict and instability. Against this backdrop, the threat of war is not abstract. It is immediate, tangible, and terrifying. If Israel strikes Hezbollah targets, the repercussions will almost certainly extend beyond military installations. Hospitals, schools, residential neighborhoods, all could be caught in the crossfire. Lebanon's population is densely concentrated in areas where Hezbollah operates, creating a dangerous overlap between combatants and civilians. Reports from previous conflicts indicate that even precision strikes carry significant risk for civilian casualties. This raises a troubling question: are these warnings aimed solely at Hezbollah, or do they also serve as implicit warnings to the Lebanese people themselves, emphasizing the cost of harboring or tolerating armed militias? Refugees and internally displaced populations are particularly vulnerable. Lebanon has already absorbed waves of refugees from neighboring Syria and Palestine, stretching resources to their limits. Any outbreak of hostilities would exacerbate an already dire humanitarian situation. Hospitals may be overwhelmed, food and water supplies disrupted, and thousands forced to flee their homes. The psychological impact alone, fear, trauma, and uncertainty, would reverberate across the country for years. International organizations have repeatedly warned that Lebanon lacks the infrastructure to absorb a major escalation without catastrophic consequences. And yet, political calculations and military strategy continue to dominate discourse, often overshadowing these human considerations. The Middle East is often described as a tinderbox, and the metaphor is painfully accurate. Years of unresolved conflicts, shifting alliances, and competing national ambitions have created a volatile environment in which a single spark can ignite an inferno. Israel's warning to Hezbollah is far from an isolated event. It is part of a larger web of tensions, particularly involving Iran, the United States, Syria, and various non-state actors operating across the region. Iran's influence is undeniable. Over the past 2 decades, Tehran has expanded its footprint through political, military, and financial support for allied groups across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Hezbollah, backed and supplied by Iran, is a critical component of this regional strategy. Its arsenal, training, and intelligence capabilities have grown in sophistication and reach, enabling it to project power beyond Lebanon's borders. For Israel, this represents an immediate threat. Any engagement involving Hezbollah is not merely a localized skirmish. It has the potential to draw multiple states into a conflict almost instantaneously. Meanwhile, tensions between the United States and Iran continue to escalate. Diplomatic efforts have repeatedly faltered, leaving both nations engaged in economic, political, and sometimes covert confrontations. Should a U.S.-Iran confrontation occur, whether through sanctions, military action, or proxy engagement, Hezbollah could act in retaliation. Israel has made it clear that it will respond decisively if such actions occur on its borders. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Hezbollah strikes, Israel retaliates, Iran responds, and the cycle could spiral out of control. The risk is no longer theoretical. It is a tangible possibility that could engulf the region. Consider the potential for unintended consequences. Neighboring states such as Syria, already a site of intense conflict and Iranian influence, could be drawn in. Jordan, Egypt, and even Gulf states could face security and refugee pressures. The entire regional order, fragile and strained as it is, could be thrown into chaos. And beyond the region, international powers with vested interests, from the United States to European nations and Russia, could become entangled, either directly or through logistical and strategic support. In essence, a conflict that begins with Israel and Hezbollah could very quickly escalate into a broader confrontation with global ramifications. To fully grasp the implications of Israel's warning, we must look at history. This is not the first time Israel and Hezbollah have confronted each other. The early 2000s saw repeated clashes, most notably the 2006 Lebanon War, which left thousands dead, devastated southern Lebanon, and resulted in widespread infrastructure damage. Subsequent flare-ups in 2008, 2010, and sporadic skirmishes throughout the past decade have created a pattern of warning escalation and limited conflict. But with each iteration, the stakes have grown higher, the capabilities of both sides more advanced, and the risk of miscalculation more severe. The 2006 war, for example, began with a Hezbollah cross-border raid and resulted in a 34-day conflict that drew international attention. Israel deployed massive military assets, and Hezbollah fired thousands of rockets into northern Israel, demonstrating its capability to challenge a superior military through asymmetric warfare. That war highlighted the dangers of underestimating a non-state actor with sophisticated weaponry and a deeply entrenched political base. Moreover, it exposed the vulnerability of civilians caught in the middle, a theme that remains tragically relevant today. What's different now? Hezbollah is far more embedded within Lebanese society, possessing not just military assets but political influence that allows it to shape the country's policies. Iran, emboldened by regional gains and a strategic vision that extends well beyond Lebanon, has deepened its partnership with Hezbollah, providing it with advanced weaponry and tactical guidance. Israel, on the other hand, has developed even more sophisticated intelligence and precision strike capabilities, but faces the same challenges before targeting Hezbollah without causing excessive civilian casualties. Additionally, the U.S. appears more directly involved in the region than in previous decades, raising the stakes and potential for international entanglement. Suggested visuals, historical photos from 2006, 2008, 2010 Israel-Hezbollah conflicts, archival news footage, timeline animations highlighting key events, maps showing conflict zones and rocket trajectories. These visuals contextualize the current warning within a historical framework, demonstrating both patterns and escalation trends. This is not a regional issue confined to Israel and Lebanon. The implications are global. Oil markets, international trade, and global security are all inextricably linked to stability in the Middle East. A major conflict between Israel and Hezbollah could disrupt shipping lanes, raise oil prices, and trigger market volatility worldwide. Financial institutions, multinational corporations, and everyday consumers could feel the effects far beyond the region's borders. Oil is particularly vulnerable. The Middle East accounts for a significant proportion of the world's oil supply, and conflict in the region has historically resulted in sharp spikes in crude prices. Even a limited engagement between Israel and Hezbollah could cause speculation in oil markets, interrupt shipping through the Mediterranean, or trigger a broader reaction involving Iran and Gulf states. International supply chains already stressed by other geopolitical pressures could be severely affected. Security concerns are equally pressing. A war between Israel and Hezbollah could embolden other non-state actors, encourage further regional militarization, and invite international powers into a broader conflict. Humanitarian crisis could extend beyond Lebanon, potentially creating refugee waves affecting neighboring states in Europe. Global attention may waver initially, but the repercussions would eventually demand engagement, whether through diplomacy, humanitarian aid, or military involvement. The mainstream narrative often underestimates this risk. Headlines focus on routine warnings and localized tensions, but the underlying reality is far more precarious. Israel's warning, Hezbollah's preparedness, and Iran's regional ambitions together suggest a scenario that could escalate rapidly. The world may be closer to a large-scale conflict than most observers realize. Ignoring these warning signs is not an option. The consequences are simply too great. Analysts have emphasized the multifaceted nature of a potential Israel-Hezbollah conflict. One military expert recently noted, a war between Israel and Hezbollah isn't just military, it's psychological, political, and could draw on the United States whether we like it or not. Another strategist added, Israel's warning is unprecedented in its clarity. It is meant to deter. But deterrence has limits, particularly when multiple actors with deep grievances and long-term strategic goals are involved. Observing troop movements, military exercises, and rhetoric coming from Lebanon, Israel, and even Iran can provide early signals of escalation. Satellite imagery and open-source intelligence reveal changes in deployment patterns that may indicate preparation for conflict. Similarly, political statements often carry subtle warnings or attempts at signaling intentions to other actors. The combination of military preparedness and political maneuvering underscores the precarious nature of this situation. Experts also caution that even with superior technology, Israel cannot guarantee a conflict will remain contained. Hezbollah's tactics, including embedding within civilian areas and leveraging asymmetric warfare, create complex operational challenges. The potential for unintended escalation is high, and historical precedents show that conflicts in Lebanon can quickly spiral beyond initial expectations. In essence, every decision made in the coming weeks carries weight not just for Israel and Lebanon, but for the broader region and the world. So, what does all this mean for Lebanon, for Israel, and for the wider world? At first glance, it might seem like another routine geopolitical warning, part of the endless cycle of tensions in the Middle East. But the reality is far more serious. Israel has drawn a line in the sand. Its warning is explicit: any Hezbollah involvement in a U.S.-Iran conflict or any action that materially supports and will not be tolerated. This is a boundary drawn not in negotiation or diplomacy, but in force, a line that, if crossed, could trigger a cascade of military, political, and humanitarian consequences. The choice facing Hezbollah is stark. It must weigh the risks of aggression against the potential devastation that a confrontation with Israel could bring. Over the decades, Hezbollah has demonstrated both resilience and strategic patience, carefully calibrating its action to balance political gains with military capability. Yet today, the stakes are higher than ever. Israel's intelligence capabilities, missile defense systems, and rapid response units mean that any misstep could escalate rapidly. Meanwhile, Iran's influence and the looming possibility of U.S. involvement complicate the situation further. Hezbollah is no longer just a local operating within Lebanon. It is a key player in a regional chess game where every move is scrutinized by multiple global powers. But the question cannot stop at Hezbollah. The Lebanese people are caught in the middle. Already suffering under severe economic collapse, high unemployment, political deadlock, and a fragile infrastructure, civilians face the real risk of becoming collateral damage. Hospitals, schools, and residential neighborhoods could be hit in the event of conflict. Refugees, both internal and those who have fled from neighboring countries like Syria, are especially vulnerable. The humanitarian dimension of this conflict cannot be overstated. While international organizations continue to provide aid, their capacity is limited, and escalation could overwhelm even the most prepared response mechanisms. Consider the wider regional implications. A localized Israel-Hezbollah confrontation could ignite broader hostilities involving Iran, Syria, and possibly other Middle Eastern nations. The ripple effects would not be contained geographically. Global markets, particularly oil and trade, could be severely impacted. Energy prices could spike, international supply chains disrupted, and global economic stability challenged. Even countries far removed from the Middle East could experience consequences in the form of market volatility, humanitarian crisis, and increased security concerns. History has repeatedly shown that instability in this region rarely remains localized. From the Gulf War to the Syrian civil conflict, disturbances have reverberated worldwide, affecting millions beyond the immediate theater of conflict. Moreover, there is a psychological and political component to consider. War, even if limited in scope, generates fear, uncertainty, and tension that can affect international diplomacy, alliances, and public perception. Israel's warning, while strategically calculated, is a signal to all parties, including the world, that deterrence has limits. When a powerful state issues such a warning, it is not merely posturing, it is a statement of intent, a declaration that the cost of miscalculation could be catastrophic. For policymakers, observers, and citizens alike, this is a moment to pay attention. This is not a distant possibility, it is a tangible, imminent risk that demands careful monitoring and thoughtful analysis. Yet within this tension lies an important lesson. The world must recognize that the stakes are human, not just political. Civilians in Lebanon, children attending schools in southern villages, families trying to maintain normalcy amidst political paralysis, all are at risk. History demonstrates that when conflict erupts, it is ordinary people who suffer the most. Infrastructure is destroyed, communities are displaced, and generations bear the scars. International actors often respond with aid and diplomacy, but the immediate cost is always borne by those living in the conflict zone. Paying attention to these human elements, therefore, is not optional. It is essential. Awareness can drive both policy and humanitarian response, potentially mitigating the impact of escalation before it reaches catastrophic levels. Let us reflect on the regional context one more time. The Middle East is a mosaic of interdependent conflicts, alliances, and rivalries. Israel's strategic calculus is influenced not only by Hezbollah's actions, but by Iran's ambitions, U.S. foreign policy, and the broader geopolitical dynamics in Syria, Iraq, and beyond. Each action, a missile fired, a troop movement, a diplomatic statement, has the potential to create a chain reaction. What may seem like a localized skirmish could become a regional conflagration. The world's attention, therefore, is not merely prudent, it is necessary. Ignoring these developments risks allowing events to spiral unchecked, with consequences that could resonate for decades. Experts continue to stress the importance of early warning signs. Satellite imagery, troop deployments, military exercises, and political rhetoric are all indicators of potential escalation. Every signal must be analyzed in context. In previous conflicts, failure to interpret such signs accurately resulted in surprise attacks, civilian casualties, and broader war. Today, with modern intelligence and communication tools, there is an opportunity to anticipate actions and respond proactively. Yet the challenge remains immense, particularly when actors like Hezbollah operate within densely populated civilian areas, complicating the operational environment and heightening the risk of collateral damage. From a global perspective, the economic dimension cannot be ignored. The Middle East plays a critical role in energy production and supply. Oil prices are sensitive to regional instability, and even the perception of conflict can drive market volatility. International trade, particularly maritime shipping through the Mediterranean and Red Sea, is also at risk. Any disruption could affect industries worldwide, from manufacturing to transportation and ultimately the daily lives of millions. The interconnectedness of today's world means that a conflict in Lebanon is not confined to its borders. Markets, security, and global stability are all intertwined with events unfolding in this small but geopolitically critical nation. So, what is the takeaway? Israel has drawn a line in the sand. Hezbollah must decide how to respond. And the rest of the world, whether we realize it or not, is watching. This is not a remote, abstract concern. This is history unfolding in real time, a high-stakes scenario with real human, political, and economic consequences. The next conflict in Lebanon is not merely a possibility, it is a credible and imminent threat if tensions continue unchecked. In the coming days and weeks, the world will have an opportunity to observe the decisions made by states, militias, and international actors, and the consequences of those decisions will ripple far beyond the region. Consider this. History is being written before our eyes. The warning signs are clear, the stakes are enormous, and the potential consequences are far-reaching. Paying attention is not enough. Awareness must translate into action, whether through informed policy decisions, humanitarian support, or simply understanding the gravity of what could happen. Civilians, nations, and global markets are all at risk. The choices made in Lebanon over the coming weeks and months will shape the region for years to come, and the cost of inaction or miscalculation is one the world may not be able to reverse. Israel's warning, Hezbollah's positioning, Iran's ambitions, and the fragile state of Lebanon together create a situation fraught with peril. But with careful monitoring, informed analysis, and proactive engagement, there is still a chance to prevent escalation. The world must watch, and the world must understand the events unfolding in Lebanon are not a distant news story. They are a pressing reality with consequences that could affect us all. The next chapter is being written now, and it demands our attention, our concern, and our awareness.